Okay,
the show.
so we have one more person join. Lucky.
Thank you.
Hi.
Hey, Lucky.
Hey, what's up, Carmel? Good evening.
Good
Good evening to everyone.
All right, so
Hi, Lucky.
we're live. Welcome everyone to Serious Banter. We do this every Tuesday. Bola Lawal. I'm one of the host, and we have Justin as well. So welcome all of you. For the last
Thank you.
couple of weeks, we've been heavy on U.S. election. So we've now really we did a pre-election show, we did a election day show, and we did a post-election show.
Are you guys done yet?
I'm
Don't forget there's inauguration. Yeah.
Just declare a winner
I-
first. We
I
can.
saw. I went this afternoon to watch some of the posts, and I saw that there are more Democrats in the House than Republican from the style of.
I mean, we welcome everyone. All we just say is, for your own protection, just come prepared because
Ben.
Whatever you do, don't wear a red hat.
I mean, everyone is
I-
You
welcome.
shut down the camera.
I wanted to annoy the establishment by putting my MAGA hat on tonight, but I said let me
Oh,
let.
that'd been great.
Let Bola
Are you a Trump supporter?
Of course, I am.
Oh, damn! I wish you had.
Off his mic, please.
Oh no!
Let's see this in action.
At least I know he's involved in crypto. You can't be a loser in all angles now. Trump supporter and them not being crypto. Now you're in crypto, so you're winning. So at least I know everything about you is not about losing. So it's okay.
I don't know. I mean, I think somebody's gonna go back and do the correlation between the election and Bitcoin shooting. Hey, Newton, come on now.
All right. So welcome everyone. So we don't introduce people. You introduce yourself, but before we get going, what we typically do is I'll ask Justin to kind of make some comments about the show, what he's expecting and how he expects things to go. And then you guys will have like 2 to 3 minutes to introduce yourself, give us an intro, talk about what you want to get into. Just kind of like give us a warm introduction about you, and then maybe share one interesting thing about yourself. So, Justin, how far?
This is the part where you throw me on that bus, Abby.
No, now it's later on. I threw you on that bus, not this early.
Okay. You're shifting the goalpost today. Okay. All right, guys. Welcome to Serious Banter Crypto Edition. This we've been planning this for a while. I mean, wanting to. Both of us happen to be. This is one area where Bola and I have a perfect confluence of incompetence, because I'm about as
I
knowledgeable.
thought it was about to be like, this is where we are experts. I was like, I'm on no. Oh God, do yourself.
No, not when we have Akin Soya and Co on the show. So today I'm a complete illiterate, and we've always bantered about this behind the scenes. That okay, crypto, this that. I try to draw parallels from the stock market, but of course I know that that's crazy. It has absolutely no bearing. So today I'm here to learn. I would like us to look at it from a perspective of crypto for dummies. Yeah. So I do know about the trends, so I can.
No,
tell
you guys
that
can get into it though. You can. We are here for the balance too. Trust me. So you guys can get into it as well. You get, but anytime you are going deep, just remember that the hosts don't know anything we are talking
we don't
about.
do anything. I don't be looking
So
at
just
you.
bring us back
So
to
we can
life.
say anything.
No, but Bola, I'm better than you in one way. At least I know how much Bitcoin is going for today.
It's
I know it's
17K. Calm
17K.
down.
Ah! Okay, so you googled it.
Don't worry. I have my sources.
Anyway, so yeah, so me, I've been eyeing that rocket ship, and I've been consoling myself with my performance, my portfolio performance on the stock market, and I'm looking at it, and I'm like, Moderna. But then, man, when I see Bitcoin going from 10 grand, circa 10 grand, just a few weeks, a month ago, and we're talking about 17, man, that thing just blows me out of the water. So. And I believe a lot of people in the audience would probably be, well, it's most definitely going to be a mixed audience. There are people who are aficionados already, and then there are blockheads and coconut heads like me that just want to ask you. At the end of the show, I want to answer one question: how do I get in the game? How do I open a wallet? So let's break it down for everybody, just like that. That's what I would like to take away from today. Well, back to you.
All right. So that's his own though. The way me, I like people will say whatever you want to say, but just remember that some people don't understand what you're talking about and bring it back to that. But again, say whatever you want to say, however you want to say it. So who wants to go first? At this point, me and Justin will just keep quiet and let you guys at least give us an intro and talk about, maybe you want to highlight your company or highlight your background. Maybe give us a funny story, interesting story of how you got into crypto or into the industry. Feel free. So I don't know who wants to go first.
I think we should be nice to the Trump supporters. And you can go first.
As far as I'm concerned, there are only 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 people on this show.
Cameron, you got me on that one.
Okay,
all right, Lucky, go first then.
Okay, my name is Lucky Wakwe, and I'm the founder of Sabi Groups. Under the Sabi Groups, we have the Sabi Exchange and Sabi Certificate Hashing Solution, which is like a blockchain-based solution for record keeping. And why the Sabi Exchange is focused around cryptocurrency exchange-related service, where we can be able to transact between crypto to crypto per se, and we have over 18 DeFi. DeFi is like one of the most trending thing right now for most persons, as much as we'll be focused on the cryptocurrency market, where people are tending to look more into Bitcoin breaking $17,000 mark. I think where a lot of persons are really missing the attention is in the area of DeFi. Yes, of course, quite a lot of them have really been low in terms of price, but I think it's another key area. So key thing is you can be able to do that with Sabi Exchange. Personally, I had undergone some other formal education with the University of Nicosia, Cyprus, for a master's program in blockchain technology. Apart from that, I do a lot of consulting and training related work for most government agencies. Case in point, Nigeria per se, from the likes of NITS, NDIC, that is Nigerian Deposit Insurance Corporations, to CBN, to NITDA, to SEC. These are some government agencies within the countries, and I've been doing quite a lot of work for them as far back as 2016. I use far back because in crypto, 1 year is like 5 years in the normal world. All right. So that's lucky for you. So let me just keep it that way, and then I'll allow others to.
Sorry, bros. We gave you fair warning that we are Ludos in this thing. You said DeFi. Is that some sort of Wi-Fi or something?
Okay, correct. Okay, DeFi is just simply decentralized finance, which is like will I use the word a subset, if I would put it in that way, to the likes of central bank digital currencies. I think Kamel should be like the queen of CBD right now. All right, so she should be able to throw more light as regards to this particular.
Do you mean cannabinoid oil?
We're gonna be here all night.
All right. So I think DeFi is just simply decentralized finance, which is really totally a new topic, or one of those innovative products from the blockchain angle that have the capacity to disrupt the hedge fund or the traditional banking business of lending and borrowing, which is like the core thing most banks tends to feed on in terms of their profit. I think decentralized finance is changing the narrative around that. And another funny thing people sometimes think is, I think I'm the founder of Yen Finance too, right? Yen Finance is like one of those popular DeFi trend that like overtook Bitcoin in terms of price. And then Yen Finance 2 became the fork of Yen Finance 1. But most persons think I'm the founder, but I'm actually not. But for some reason, I don't know how they picture that in their mind, and they think I'm the founder of Yen Finance 2. Why, if to any person that see me, they tend to say, Lucky, where's my Yen Finance token? And I tell them I'm not the founder. But I think that's that. So I will leave others to talk. So the Biden supporters, so yeah, over to you. If you don't mind.
All right, I'll follow up on that. I think, all right, I'll start from some definitions and then I'll talk a little bit myself. So I think decentralized finance is essentially sort of a branch of crypto that is essentially trying to remake the financial services space on blockchains, right? blockchains are permissionless, or at least true blockchains are permissionless networks. And what that means is that anybody, anywhere can have access to these networks and can transact on these networks, right? And that's a very important distinction to make, because the current traditional financial system is behind walled gardens, right? Heavily regulated. You pretty much have to give a lot of information and take permission to transact in the current financial world. So a lot of what we're doing in decentralized finance, or DeFi, is essentially replicating to some extent what you see in the traditional finance space. But there are some particular things that make DeFi a lot more efficient, right? So like Lucky was saying, in many regards, the protocol replaces the bank, right? It replaces all the middlemen in the traditional financial system that extract the majority of the value, right? So a good example is if you go to a commercial bank anywhere in the world, you have to give certain information to open an account. You know, in the US, your social security number. In Nigeria, is your BVN. You got to maybe present your passport, your driver's license, right? There's all this information that the bank and the government need to be sure and know about you. KYC, right? Know your customer information. And after you do that, you can now have the privilege of lodging your money in that account, right? Bank account. And you can access it in many ways. Now, I think what people don't really understand is when you put your money in the bank, you have a claim on those funds, right? The bank basically becomes a custodian of your money. And the bank has a lot of control as to how and when you can receive your money. That's one thing. Then the second thing is, once you've lodged your money in a commercial bank, what the bank is really trying to do is take those funds and then allocate those funds to essentially profit-making, efficient businesses, right? So you want to give it to businesses that have a high margin. They'll pay interest, they'll pay a return. Some of that return, goes to kind of fund the bank operations. Goes towards the shareholders as profit, and then maybe you, the depositor, might get, a small interest, if any. But in most of banking, as we know today, you're actually a net loser of funds, right? Because banks charge for all sorts of transactions, right? So if you look at your bank account at the end of the day and look at all the fees extracted versus the interest you're getting, you're typically paying more in fees than you're getting in interest. So that kind of is level setting that. Now in the DeFi space, we're essentially trying to replace all that middleman with a fair protocol, right? A place where I can lodge my funds, people can borrow my funds, but the vast majority of return goes directly to me, right? And so the code becomes the bank, right? The code becomes the way you can program lending, you can program borrowing, and then you can program a lot more complex financial structures that you really cannot do today in traditional finance, partially because of regulation and also partially because of just the need to have people intermediating transactions and looking at things. So lots of banks have what they call back offices that review transactions, that have to there are all sorts of costs in traditional finance that you can basically eliminate in decentralized finance. So just from a utility standpoint, the cost structure of decentralized financial protocols are a lot lower. And because of that, you can share more profits with those who are putting funds in the networks, and you can reach more customers, right? Because the cost structure has changed. So that's one thing. Now, into my background. My background is, I have a degree in economics. I spent most of my career in a mix of international development finance, management consulting, and then I spent some time with Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac doing a lot of structured finance, so credit default swaps, CDOs, mortgage-backed securities. That's basically a fancy word for taking like illiquid assets and finding ways to make them more liquid. Now, what that basically means is you could take a mortgage, which is tied to a house, right? That house is not a liquid asset. Like I can't just sell it like I sell a loaf of bread. Like it takes time, you have to sort of list it. Now, you can take that mortgage and see it's liquid, And what a Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac will do is buy thousands of mortgages, right? Put them into a pool. So you can have 10,000 mortgages in one pool. Now, those mortgages are backed by a house. The person who owns the mortgage is paying a mortgage every month. And that is basically a yield on that debt, right? So if your mortgage is 5% on average, that pool is now yielding 5%. Now, Fannie Mae could go sell that security to central banks as a whole. But what has happened in traditional finance is those securities become tranched, which basically means that you might have an investor that says, look, I want to be paid first. I want to put 10% I want 10% of that pool, but I want to always be paid first before other people, right? In case someone defaults and, someone is late on their payment, I want to be paid first. And for that privilege, that person gets what we call like a senior tranche, right? They basically get a lower interest to always be paid first, right? The junior tranche might say, look, I don't think this pool is that risky. I'm fine being paid last, but I want more interest, right? So rather than pay me 5%, pay me 8% for the risk I'm taking. Now, when you're able to kind of tranche debt that way, you get a lot more liquidity because people can literally just buy exactly what they want across what we call a risk curve, right? So if I'm taking less risk, I'll take less interest. If I'm taking greater risk, pay me more interest. And that has the effect of making it a more liquid security, right? So rather than having to sell the whole pool to one person, I can sell that pool to 100 people, taking different tranches, different pieces of it. And typically that makes these assets more liquid. And so that's basically, I just basically explained what I'm trying to do or what I'm working with today in a company called Barnbridge. We're essentially trying to take that idea of tranching risk and bringing it into the decentralized finance space and creating products that we think would not only appeal to individuals, but also appeal to traditional financial investors who today are currently getting 0 to negative yield on their assets that sit in the bank or sit in treasuries or other, or even mortgage-backed securities today are not yielding what they used to. So I'll stop there and let others kind of chime in.
Yeah, I can go next. So my name is Uche Asinguchi, and I'm a blockchain engineer. I build solutions that run in most of the banks in Canada. So Akin mentioned KYC and AML. Some of the solutions I built for digital identity management is what powers all the big banks in Canada and also some banks in the US, the UK, and Australia. So what we're doing is we're looking at a way to reduce the back office processes that currently happen in many banks. So if I have an account in, say, one bank and I want to open a new account in a different bank, I have to go through all of those KYC and AML processes. So what we're doing is that we're giving customers a way to control their identity on the blockchain and share it across multiple banks and across multiple organizations like health agencies, governments, and things like that. And that's the area of blockchain I'm really excited about. Because, I mean, when lots of people hear blockchain, they just think Bitcoin, right? But blockchain is more than that. There are other cryptocurrencies. And apart from the cryptocurrencies, blockchain can also be used for things like digital identity in the logistics space and things like that, right? So the technology that powers all of these cryptos is, I think, there's a huge potential in that, especially in a place like Nigeria and other African countries where it's really hard to track the credit score of people to open a bank account and all of those things. So I'm really excited about the potential of maybe connecting blockchain with SMS and USSD systems and seeing how that will work. Yeah, so I think that's something that can be done. And in Canada here, we've done a lot of work in providing a solution that all of the banks are on this network, and they easily share information across themselves. And also, I have a patent both in Canada and the US for a digital identity solution that's
Oh, really?
blockchain.
Interesting.
So that's me. And oh yeah, finally, I'm the founder of Africa Hacks. So I don't know if some of you know about Africa Hacks.
Oh yeah. What's her name was here? Oh, no wonder she was okay. Now,
What do you say? What do you call the name again? Africa Hack?
Africa Hacks, yeah.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. So at Africa,
your partner was here a couple of shows ago.
yeah. So with Africa Hacks, what we're doing is that, Christine was here, like talking about Africa Hacks, and what we do is we build digital economy platforms that enables anyone to create a startup. And yeah, everything is online about Africa Hacks, and I'll be happy to chat about it after this.
No doubt.
All right.
So save the best for the last, of how they say.
I don't know about that. All right. So my name is Carmel Cadet. I'm the founder and CEO of a tech company. Lucky alluded to that earlier. So we're looking at blockchain and essentially thinking about how does cash move to blockchain. Today, we know cash is paper-based, and we know that cryptocurrencies are a way to pay for things, but the cash that we use every day, it's either digital because we have a bank account or because you have a mobile money. But central banks, people don't really think about this every day, but they actually have machines and they print paper, right? A lot of it every year still. I think in the US, it's about $680 million a year that they spend kind of printing paper cash. But when we were locked down, everybody probably stopped at the house, picked up some cash or something, just keep on you in case you need something, in case something goes down. You don't know what's going to go down, but you just keep some cash on you. But if you want to either Amazon, Jumio, whatever, you can't do that with cash, right? You kind of have to have a digital way of actually getting money. And people who don't have bank accounts right now, and people who keep money and keep cash, you're just paper-based, right? So right now we're looking at how do you take blockchain, the technology that Lucky was talking about and Uche was talking about, the technology that underpins Bitcoin, instead of Bitcoin, which is one type of asset that you can invest in, and we can talk about that, it behaves more like a stock. I want to say that, but it behaves more like a stock than anything else. And of course, we can get into the argument whether it's an equity and an asset and whatever. We can go to war on that.
Don't worry, I'll write it down. I like trouble, so I'll write it down so I can ask.
Yes, but we're looking at kind of a different cryptocurrency, a different type of currency that everybody uses today, but using the technology to actually make it more accessible to people and more of an anchor too, because when you think about the type of networks that Lucky is talking about, the type of use case that Akin is talking about, those can be risky and sophisticated use cases, right? For people who want to invest, people who want to kind of create capital for their companies, kind of issue stocks differently or issue tokens against their equity differently. I think you're going to see a lot of use cases around that, how people do finance, in the future with blockchain, which is very different. But we started with that use case with the extreme of Bitcoin, which is very powerful in some ways, but it leaves a lot of people because it's so difficult to get on, right? Try to tell your mom to just use Bitcoin right now. It's just not practical. So we're looking at how do we bring the anchor, what we call the anchor currency, right? Or the sovereign currency, that people can use it that way too. That way you have something that is backed by the central bank. That it is as good as cash, that is going to be recognized and taken and accepted as a payment no matter what happens. Right now, that doesn't exist in DeFi or blockchain, right? So any cryptocurrency that you get on blockchain today has an intermediary or some other mechanism, whether it is a smart contract or something very digital or autonomous that's driving it. And that comes with risk, but that also comes with reward. So for us, so that's what we call central bank digital currency. So this is kind of this bringing blockchain to the central banks, and how do central banks issue their own cryptos to make it, and that's cash, right? That's really what we call cash. So we can talk about whether Bitcoin is the real cash and cash is the real cash, but that's what we're doing. So MTech is working on central bank digital cash. But as we went into the space, we realized something even bigger in a way, that central banks as a financial institution, they haven't been innovating. So innovation and central banks are not two things that you usually put together. So as a company, for us, we do find a market opportunity on that, kind of thinking about how do they become more innovative? How do they connect with DeFi? How do they get better educated on blockchain? Instead of banning it, how do they use it to do things better? And people yell at me about that. It's like, you're not supposed to be helping the central banks. We're supposed to be getting away from those guys and things like this. But there's a value in having an anchor in this, new fi. I'm gonna start a new hashtag. I think we need a new fi, hashtag that gives an umbrella, and then we have DeFi, CeFi, and then something else, and everything else.
I think I heard of DeFi.
Justin, this is your smirk,
LeFi.
It's not a smirk.
That kind of finance.
Right.
I wasn't smirking. I mean, I was enjoying what she was saying, and I was trying to link it to something I read about Singapore and what they are doing in that space, where you're describing the nexus between crypto and the mainstream currency. So I think, if I remember correctly, that's actually what I was trying to remember. I think Singapore has created some cryptographic version of their Singaporean dollar, if I remember correctly.
Yeah,
so creating that link.
Yeah, they did a few projects. So Project Uben, right, Lucky, and I think a few other projects on that. So the central bank digital currency space, I guess you can boil it down. There are two things that you start thinking about and hearing about when people are talking about it. What is interbank? Meaning, like, how do the banks settle and use crypto among themselves to settle? And then there's like the people version, right? The consumer retail version of it is like, what can central banks do for people actually? Because right now we're talking about a new finance landscape, and everybody just relies on cash or the money that the central bank issues today. If you're going to move them to something else, what does that mean for them, right? And that's where, the central bank themselves definitely have to play a role. And I think, Akin and I talk about that a lot, right? If we can get the central banks, that opens the door for new interoperability, new business models that you can see, okay, now we understand how to bring an anchor into the network that can not only make things more liquid, but things a bit safer too.
Well, Camille, did I pronounce your name correctly?
Yes, you got it. You got it.
What you're describing, there's a difference between what you're describing and a cryptocurrency, right? So, standing your central bank digital currencies is essentially taking the fiat money that the central bank regulates and creating an electronic or a digital version of it on the blockchain, which is technically different from how I understand what a cryptocurrency is. I just want to be sure that understanding is correct, so I can build a wall between both concepts.
Just full disclosure, Justin used to be a banker.
My friend, keep quiet there.
So, full disclosure. So, as you guys are poo-pooing everything about traditional money, and he's not a nice person, it's going to come back. He likes to fight, too, but he has a smile on his face. So I'm acting like,
off your mic.
Okay, let me come back.
We're getting along just fine until he interrupted, right? So please just go on.
See, I was blind, now I can see.
Yeah, see.
So I would say it depends on how you look at it. From a very technical perspective, a little secret, right? There's nobody watching, right? It's just us. Mm-hmm. Using cryptography and the technology to design the digital currency, the token that you're going to sell, that's what makes it crypto or not, right? Whether you're using those kind of mechanisms. Cryptocurrency itself, kind of, there are certain regulators and bankers who want to make a differentiation that cryptocurrency are those kids and it's Bitcoin, it's this, right? It's not true. right? It's not true. I think the way to look at it is the right question to ask is, are there cryptographic mechanisms in this solution? And what does that do? That provides more authentication, that allows you to build trust, that allows you to make sure that the right person, whoever is supposed to access this, is accessing it. No one else is accessing it. So you're using the technology to do what you want it to do. So we think cryptography is important in the context of giving people privacy, and while still allowing and making sure that you're not creating a network that is going to be fraudulent and people are stealing people's money. But so it can be a cryptocurrency. To answer your question, a CBDC can be a cryptocurrency.
I totally agree. I totally agree.
Real quick before we get going, please, I tagged everyone on the post on Twitter. So if you don't mind, you can just retweet it so your folks can know you're on the show and they can join us. But sorry about that. Continue.
So I was gonna say, I think the key distinctions to remember, right, is not necessarily just the technology. So anyone can create a cryptographically secure token, right? The key distinction is decentralization and permissionlessness. Right, so Bitcoin is a fully decentralized, permissionless currency, which basically means that the way Bitcoin is secure, the way it's distributed, the fact that only 21 million Bitcoin will ever be mined, and the fact that anyone can participate in securing the network, that's a big distinction between a decentralized currency that's permissionless and a central bank digital currency, which is permissioned and not decentralized, right? It's basically so, and that distinction is very important because ultimately, central bank digital currencies can do a lot to help central banks, right? It can create a way where central banks can literally onboard every citizen into its platform, right? Which sort of circumvents banks, right? So you can have a scenario where a central bank can create wallets for all the citizens and say, look, if we want to start, COVID, right? COVID is happening, and maybe some particular states in Nigeria are particularly hit badly. If you had a central bank digital currency and every Nigerian citizen had a wallet, whether it's on a smartphone or through SMS, then the central bank can actually intervene very, very targetedly, right? They can send money to exactly who they want, where they want, get feedback on how that money is impacting the economy. And so it gives central banks a lot more power in one sense to intervene, to manage its monetary policy, to be very targeted. And ultimately it hurts the banks, right? Because central banks don't necessarily have to go through the banks anymore, who essentially are, for lack of a better word, rent seekers, right? They're there basically as a pass-through. I mean, I'll give you a classic example. When the first COVID bill passed earlier this year, I think it was over $2 trillion. It was like part of it, the majority of it was to bail out small businesses in the US, right? Who literally, restaurant owners, businesses that literally went from, 100 to zero. Like all your customers aren't showing up anymore, right? But the central bank went through the banking system because that's how it works. And two things happened. First of all, the bankers gave the majority of that money to their friends. Right, the Harvard endowment, which is what, $18 billion, got money. The Stanford endowment got money. A lot of people who really didn't need it.
That might also be a function of Lucky's people, man.
Right, a lot of these people got money, and then the folks who really were hurting didn't. Right, because different people have different access points into a bank.
Yeah, you heard me, Lucky. Also, you heard me. Good.
Right.
Yeah. So, actually, I want to throw it back, but I didn't want to interrupt.
Yeah, but one more point. So I had 2 points. So that was the first point. So the first point was, if you now have an intermediary who now is responsible for distribution, then they'll have a lot of say in how to distribute those funds. The second part is,
how would that work though? Before we move forward, how would that work?
So in central banking, right, in the US, the central bank prints money. Central bank gives that money through the banking system to the banks and says, hey, banks, here's the program we want to do. We want to kind of identify who needs the money. You have at least in America, a good majority of people are banked. Most businesses have bank accounts. So identify the people within your network that fit the bill and give them the money, right? Based on certain rules and stipulations. Some of them were loose, right? Because the program was hurriedly pushed out, right? Because things were kind of moving quickly. So the banks now have a responsibility to distribute $2 trillion, right? And they're now trying to figure out, well, who do I bail out, right? Do I give the money to my country club friend who like is losing profits, or do I give it to Bala's cousin who, lives in Queens and like I really don't know who he is, right? More than likely, you'll give the money to your friends first, right? They're calling you on the phone. Yeah. They're like, look, business isn't going well, right? So that's how typically money is distributed in the United States. It goes through the central banks into the banking system. Now, the other side of it too is the second point I was trying to make was, as a whole, the banks made $10 billion in profits from distributing government money to recipients.
Or didn't Wells Fargo say they were going to donate a portion of all of it or something like that?
After the fact, after the news came out. The problem with that is, well, look, banks are already profitable. This is supposed to be a social good. Like, should they be making profits out of it? Like, they make profits. Like, we're trying to bail out your customers, and to even give them the money, you are collecting a tax. That's problematic. Now, if you had a CBDC, for example, right? If the bank had hired Carmel like a year ago and said, look, integrate a CBDC currency, let's get this ready. We think it's the next great technology. All of a sudden, what it would have done was that I've called Carmel, that I've called Cash App, that I've called Jack. They'll be like, okay, all you guys who literally have digital platforms, let's use you as distribution instead, right? And those guys will be like, hey, yeah, our platforms are cheap. We have all these customers. How do you want to like give them money? Dollars, dollar stable coins, Bitcoin, like whatever, right? There are other avenues that could have been leveraged, even without CBDCs, that central banks just weren't used to leveraging, right? So they went where they knew, and it really wasn't the most efficient way, and it was expensive to do.
But I'm glad it happened though, because for so many years we've been talking about there's a financial inclusion program in the US, and nobody believed us. And even afterwards, right, we get laughed at, saying, you literally have millions of people, but in the context of the size, like it's 60 million people, 80% are banks, so it's all good. But it's true. I mean, that's the direct access that sometimes that central bank digital currency can bring. I mean, CBN and, even the governor the other day was talking about how they're trying to get people to farmers, right, for agriculture, for all those programs that they have. But it's all policy. It's not technology, and it's really hard to implement, right? I'm not going to bash the banks. I mean, we can bash the banks. I work at banks.
If you bash the bank, they'll see you at the other side when you come to. But that aside.
Yeah. Lucky, I was going to say.
I wanted to say something like regards to what I think would be the key difference between the normal cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin and that of the central bank digital currencies. For me, I think the acronym I formed for it is hidden between the word CBD, which will be C in terms of control. I think one key difference between the central bank digital currencies and probably every other digital currencies or cryptocurrencies as we know it, like Bitcoin, will be in terms of control. For most of the central bank digital currency, I think a large portion of the control will fall in the hands of the government than for the people, while the other one will be in terms of what is backed, what is backing the currency itself, which is B. And for most central bank digital currency, I think they're not really backed, with all fairness, aside from the fact that the government is promising that upon any time you want to come redeem your money, you're always sure of getting it back. Just nothing but merely vague promise. Sorry, tonight I will be standing in for the government people, even though initially most persons will think I will stand for them. Most persons will think I'll probably stand for them. I rather prefer to stand with the private people. And lastly will be in terms of distribution. I think for the distribution model, I follow through the Singapore project, which Justin was talking about, called Project Mass. I think as well with the test phase I'm seeing in China, there's this DCEP. There's this thing called DCEP with the Chinese government, known as digital currency stuffs like that, which the Chinese government are currently trying. So I got to reach out to some friends of mine who live in China, and they happen to also receive some of those cash. I think if it's in the normal cryptocurrencies like we know them, or the private cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin, the distribution model probably would not have followed the same line or method as we've seen in terms of government-backed kind of CBD, which for me will be the key three difference if I would want to point that to any newbies in terms of what's the difference between normal cryptocurrencies and the central bank digital currencies per se.
Yeah, and also what you described, LOK kind of aligns with.
Uche, I think you're mute. I'm not sure if I can hear you.
I can hear Uchi.
Oh, can you hear me? Okay, so I was saying that
I can hear Uche.
all of you described aligns with the two kinds of blockchains. I like to describe them. So like private and permission blockchain. So
Lucky, can you hear us? Okay, can you log out and come back in, Lucky? You might have to get out and come back in so you'll be able to hear us, because we can hear everybody else. Everybody else can hear each other.
I'm not sure if I can hear anybody again. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, we can. Okay.
Yes, we can hear you.
But you can't hear us.
Yeah. So.
Okay, let me just leave and come.
Okay, good.
Okay, awesome. So I was talking about like the two kinds of blockchain as I like to describe them, private and permission, and what Lucky described aligns really well with those types of blockchain, because I mean, for most of the use cases that the governments and banks are adopting, they are going with blockchain solutions that have some form of permission. So for example, what we're doing with Hyperledger for digital identity, everyone on the network, we control, we invite those that join the network, the banks that join the network, and all of that. And I think for a lot of the central bank digital currencies, they might have the same, I'm not sure, but I think they probably have like the same approach, some form of permission. And that kind of differs from like the way Bitcoin is structured, total freedom and permissionless. And for me, when I look at the next 10 to 20 years, adoption of blockchain and crypto would tend towards the permission aspect of things, and also with working with banks like what Kamel is doing. I think that's what would really drive adoption for the next few years. And if we want to get more people involved, I think we should probably look at those permission blockchains like Hyperledger, because they provide all of the benefits of the blockchain, right? So there's the auditability of it, there's the decentralization, and there's the fact that there's no central point of failure all built into all of those permissioned blockchains, right? So for the next few years, I would predict that those are the kind of solutions that would really reach mass adoption. And then probably in the next 10, 20, or 30 years, we'll start looking at how totally decentralized solutions like Bitcoin and Ethereum would reach the masses.
Okay, I have a question for you guys. I'm going to contextualize this entire thing in Africa.
Okay.
Given the tensions that typically exist between the regulatory authorities, the government authorities, and the system, right, where a major feature of that relationship is command and control structures. Yeah, I mean, without necessarily dredging up the things that have happened, not just in Nigeria in recent times, but we're seeing what's going on in the Congo, we're seeing what's going on the subcontinent, right? There's always this tension between the government and the governed. And a central theme, if you like, of DeFi and cryptocurrency is decentralization. It's disruption of those structures, right? When you look at it from this context, where do you guys see, whether it's central bank sponsored projects or whether it's private exchanges, where do you see scale happening in Africa? Where do you see adoption going on? Uche was just talking about adoption and giving us his forward view. I have a pessimistic because of what I just said, right? What do you guys think? I mean, some of you are already working in the space. Lucky is, Kamel is, Akin probably is. What do you see from where you sit already in terms of what's the outlook for adoption, given the attitude of most governments that you would speak with in Africa?
Interestingly, okay.
I was gonna jump in. I think so. First of all, to Uchi's previous comment, I disagree. I think majority of adoption is going to come from decentralized networks. And I think that also feeds into your question, Justin, because in the African context, for example, I think over 60% to 80%, depending on what country you look at, of Africa is either totally unbanked or underbanked, right? So the current financial system does not even service anywhere near half of the population. And that half of the population has always fended for themselves, figured out how to transact, right? Before central banks existed, before countries existed, people were transacting. That's one. Number two, if you look at Nigeria, Nigeria is the classic import-dependent country, right? We import everything into Nigeria, right? Even basic food, we don't produce enough.
Aki is a lie. We don't import rice. The rice in Kano.
Let me finish, Saga. but the conflicts your children eat, the conflicts eating in your house is imported. Anyway, the laptop, the equipment you're using. In that context, if you think about it, right? Nigeria imports all these goods, and we have to pay for it in foreign exchange. As Nigeria has grown, right, and oil prices have fallen, there's less cash to pay for all the things we need. So the people that get access to CBN dollars are the Dangotes of the world and the connected people, right? The little guy who's importing 2 cars every month from Canada to sell, he's not getting central bank rates in Nigeria. He either has to go to malams all over the place and figure out how he's going to get enough to continue running his business, or he can use Bitcoin, right? I think the largest use case for digital currency in Nigeria currently is Bitcoin to settle global transactions, right? You can buy Bitcoin in Nigeria, you can send it to your cousin in Canada or Dallas or wherever, right? He can convert it back to dollars, buy the car, send it back to you, right? A lot of people, out of necessity, during the last downturn, the last recession in Nigeria, lots of businesses failed because they couldn't get foreign exchange, right? Maybe the few that survived who didn't have access to CBN directly or have access to bank cash found and discovered Bitcoin. Nigeria is across the world, right? Nigeria has the highest incidence of recognition of Bitcoin in the world. Ahead of China, ahead of every Asian country, ahead of the United States. It tells you that out of necessity, right, people are finding ways to leverage Bitcoin to trade, import, export, whatever it might be. Now, and these are people who've never really had, a lot of whom have never had access to formal financial services. So if they're now saying, look, I have this means of transacting globally that I didn't have before. No one is asking me for BVN. No one's asking me for passport. No one's asking me, oh, the bank transaction failed. All people know is that, hey, I have a Bitcoin address and wallet. I can send money to someone else. That person can settle the transaction and we're good and we can exchange goods, right? That's what I call as Efosa will say, it's Ojama who will say, that's where you have non-consumption, now finding a product that allows you to consume. Right?
Markets creating innovation.
Exactly. Now, all of a sudden, I'm not surprised that the recognition and incidence and use of Bitcoin in Nigeria is high. It's a no-brainer, right? Because there are lots of businesses in Nigeria today that would not exist if Bitcoin didn't exist. They would have either failed or they wouldn't have been able to start.
Aki, is this happening across board or sorry, Aki, what you're talking about, is it across the board or is it contained within certain communities? And then those communities are doing volumes.
So from what I know, right, I'll tell you this, because earlier this year I was working with a crypto over-the-counter company, right? So OTC is basically being able to buy Bitcoin off exchanges, right? You can buy, if you want to buy $10 million worth of Bitcoin, typically wouldn't go to an exchange. It would go to like an OTC desk who would be able to sell you in large amounts. And the OTC, just globally, OTC transactions are much larger than exchange transactions. Now in Nigeria, right, from my research, everyone is using Bitcoin. So the import-export businesses that have to use it out of necessity are using Bitcoin, right? A lot of well-connected rich people who can't get access to enough dollars are using Bitcoin, right? The people who are trying to avoid currency controls and what Emefiele and Buhari are trying to do are using Bitcoin.
Call him on.
Yeah, I'd like to respond to what Akin said about
someone
I
has
think-
some background noise.
I think Lucky's trying to come in. Lucky has a point.
Okay,
Yeah.
I think the three key areas where we've seen growth from the African perspective have always been in terms of payments, in terms of remittance, and in terms of speculation. These are the three key areas right now where we've seen the high use case for Bitcoin. I said remittance because for the challenge we faced as a result of some policies or unavailability of dollars, where if you have a family or loved ones outside the country sending you back dollar, going to cash it in the bank, you would convert it at probably somewhere around 380 as of today, whereby in the real open market, it will be going for over 470. So technically, for every $1 you receive, you're losing over close to $100 or 100 naira for every $1. So people discovered that it is far more better for them to receive money or remittance into or out of the country using cryptos, for the fact that they don't want to be shortchanged. Nobody want to work for the other person to earn a living, not just to work for some banking institution or for the government per se. So there is this high usage of crypto as at today. I'm just throwing light to the question Justin asked. So there's this high usage of crypto within the African market in the area of remittance. That's one. Like Aki had also pointed out earlier in terms of payments, there's a high number of persons right now who, instead of wasting their time looking for ways to source out a dollar from the black market or source out dollar from banks where they know that it's almost practically impossible to even get as of today, they just go through Bitcoin. Like everybody, for most persons who are now doing international business, they're not used to it. Even as far as those who don't even understand the technicalities of what crypto is all about, they are fine with meeting some persons. Sometimes we refer to them as agents here in the local market. They just give them cash, and the next thing they do is they send the money across to China, and all they want is that the Chinese businessman should just say, yes, I've received the equivalent amount of RMB, or they've received the equivalent amount of dollar, or in Hong Kong or wherever, or in Dubai, and then they release their cash automatically. Most of them don't even know that they even use Bitcoin as a means of payment, or crypto as a means of payment for international business. All they know is that they want to move money overseas, or they want to pay for goods in China or in Dubai. The receiver should just confirm that he or she has received the money. But actually, those agents, or the people they refer to as agents, utilize Bitcoin and they just convert it. Another thing I'm beginning to see
real quick, Lucky, please. So the big players, is that what some of what Sabi does? And the other players and stuff like that, the agency, quote unquote, is it like buy coins and guys like that?
Yes, we do that, but not like in this open format, like the one I just explained, where business people would just want to send their money across, let's say to China or to Dubai. We don't do that directly on the platform, but we kind of provide that as like a side service, because it's not really something that is on the demand on a day-to-day basis. But we have a lot of these business persons who, at one point in time, they just meet you up and they tell you, you know what, this week they want to pay for some container loads of goods in, say, China or in Dubai, and all they want is that they don't know how to, they have no source of getting the dollar, but they want to just send their money across. Well, the simple way we just do is, we tell some other persons or some other counterpart in that particular location, be China, be Dubai, that we'll be sending them Bitcoin or USD Tether. I think USD Tether is even more popular than Bitcoin, interestingly. Like most persons even talk a lot about Bitcoin and they forget about USD Theta. USD Theta is just simply a dollar pegged kind of crypto that avoids some form of volatility around price. So there's this high demand. In fact, in the month of August, September, and October, the figures that are available right now show that there is this high demand for Theta that people were even willing to buy it above current market price. And they don't even want to care. They don't care. A lot of persons don't even care because they don't want to be caught in this trap of Bitcoin volatility of price going up and then falling at the same time. So a lot of persons are beginning to use that Theta as the use case. So we've seen that high demand for Theta between the Chinese Nigeria corridor for most persons that trade between China, Nigeria, Dubai, Nigeria. These are like the key main places. Of course, there are some few cases of US per se, but these are the things we begin to see in terms of use case or where I'm seeing more of the adoption. Not even waiting for the government or for the authorities, but there's already a use case and it's currently in high demand. I think the volume of amount of money currently Nigeria is doing, I don't think any data is actually capturing the real fact. I remember Cambridge University or so, they had this research they had done about Nigeria and they released that was in the month of September. When I saw the figure there, I just laughed because I know that the real figures are actually not really captured. Because even a lot of the volumes they do off the market in terms of OTC players or people who do what they call face me, I face you, peer-to-peer, like they know you, you know them, they give you the money, you return back the value for them. Those ones are not even captured. Like those transactions that happen on WhatsApp. And I think the large portion of the transactions that take place in Nigeria happen on a direct one-on-one base, even compared to what you see on most exchanges. Most exchanges are probably doing, if I want to put it in terms of percentage, let's say 40% of what is actually taking place in Nigeria. More people are doing volumes on a direct one-on-one basis, either through WhatsApp group, Telegram group, or somewhere they know me, I know you kind of thing, than even on exchanges as of today. And I think we're already seeing use case in that from the Nigerian market, not just from the Nigerian market, even for friends that I have in Uganda and Kenya. The stories is almost the same. In Ghana, it's almost generally the same as of today. So remittance, payment, and of course, the father of them all is speculation. I use speculation because looking at the current situation in terms of economic hardship that people are passing through right now, not just even Nigeria, but across the board in Africa, a lot of persons want to just speculate on crypto. So when most persons are entering crypto for the first time, they're not entering it because, let's say, they want to use it for payment or they want to use it for remittance. They're entering basically because they want to speculate that the price will either go up or come down. Case in point, I saw this high demand or high surge of people going into DeFi as at that time. Even some persons had to reach out to me because I'm also part of the core team of Yen Finance too. But then I'm not the founder because, again, there's no founder for most of this DeFi-related project. You might just have somebody who will get the concept or idea, but a lot of times they're normally run by core teams, all right? So we had the surge of people going into buying into this crypto, not because they want to use it for payment or remittance, but strictly because they want to just speculate around price. There was this crazy thing that happened in Nigeria called, is it Forsage or something like that, if I'm not mistaken. And everybody was just buying into Tron, TRX, as it's token called TRX. Not because TRX really have a much direct use case in the Nigerian space, but people were just speculating around it so long as you're able to get somebody who would buy and then you get commission off it. So these are the three main areas I've seen adoption as far as the African market is concerned. And it seemed like when Nigeria is done chewing up those things, they regurgitate it and send it to like another small African countries. I'm seeing when Nigeria leave Forsage.
That sounds like shade.
All right. It seems like when Nigeria is done with those kind of things, they push it to the next country in Africa. I think it's beginning to trend in places like Uganda now, something that is a little bit obsolete for us here in Nigeria. It's beginning to trend in Uganda, especially for most of those schemes. And I think the fourth part where I'm seeing a use case, even though it's not really on a positive light, of course, it's in the area of Ponzi scheme. There's still high use case of crypto in Ponzi scheme. Right, it's a use case, of course. I can't just overrule that. Right, it's a use case, but not on the positive side. All right.
Kamel, you want to jump in?
I mean, I think we're gonna add that as a test case.
All right.
No, but the answers to your question, Justin, right? The answers that you got so far. I mean, this is in a way, you have real needs in people's life, right? So people are going to do what they need to do. That's really what it comes down to. So if you give them another option on how to pay and how to get money and how to be able to buy food, like they're going to do it if they don't have any alternative. But at the same time, I think what I think was talking about as far as highlighting the risks, right? When you do something like this. So we were all on Twitter, we saw the messages, switching from bank accounts to Bitcoin, doing the NSARS, conversation. It was kind of an easy shift. It was a tweet, right? It was a tweet. And then like the whole flow moved from one channel to another. That's how easy it is for, if you know, you know. At the same time, as I was looking at this, right, I saw it, I understand it. I know enough to understand why they did that. But as a regulator, so now you tell yourself, okay, the regulators and the innovators are not usually good players. They want control. They want, this is the worst thing that could happen to them, to watch their whole money flow bypassing them and say, okay, we're gonna go to Bitcoin, and there's nothing they can do about it. There's absolutely nothing they can do about it. That's the reality that every regulator is dealing with right now.
Well, so let me piggyback on that, because I think there are a couple of important points to make around that.
Mm-hmm.
I think that, and I have very, very personal feelings towards it. I think that the job of a regulator primarily is to protect consumers, right? It's to ensure that you don't have nefarious activity happening, sure, but it's really consumer protection. Protect consumers from the big bad bank, right? Protect consumers.
Ideally.
Yes, that's you should look at any law in any central bank or any regulator in any country.
And we should hold them to that. We should hold them to that too. That's
right. And the biggest piece is protecting consumers. Yeah. Now, in the NSARS movement, right, when people were exercising their democratic rights to peaceful protest, right, it's governed by the Nigerian Constitution. Because certain powers that be didn't like what they were seeing, they cut off the bank accounts of those who were funding the movement, right? That was the first action. And they went after centralized entities like Flutterwave, like banks, and said, cut these guys off, right? As soon as they did that, right, some of these entities now spun up a BTC Pay server. A BTC Pay server is a way to receive Bitcoin. It's kind of like a virtual bank account. You can receive Bitcoin into those. It can't be stopped. Now, the movement didn't skip a beat because people now could donate Bitcoin seamlessly, globally.
And crazy, they've made a lot of money on the Bitcoin from when the process ended to now. They probably because I think Bitcoin was 11K then, and now it's 17.
Well, but here's the other side of what I want to also say, in that when you spin up a BTC Pay server and you have a BTC address, right? Anyone can audit that account. Anyone can see all the transactions going in and transactions going out. Right?
They just CBN my connection.
It's not a private ledger; it's a public ledger. Now, some of the entities that I wouldn't name who are receiving these funds on Twitter were giving daily reports. We received X, we spent Y. I didn't have to trust that information. I could have looked at the Bitcoin account and said, oh, it matches, right? They did a report daily. And at the end of the whole NSARS movement, they did like a final accounting saying, here's the balance of what we didn't spend, here's who we're giving it to, right? So the important thing I want to highlight is decentralized networks also give you transparency that you do not get from central entities. So it's not just the fact that the government can't stop me from transacting illegally, because it's illegal to shut down someone's account if they're not doing anything nefarious. Period. In Nigeria, it is. Whoever wants to argue that, look at the laws, right?
Well, illegal is subjective.
It's not, right?
It's subjective to the regulator.
In the Nigerian case, you can call it subjective, but it isn't, and that's where things collapse, right? When you selectively apply laws, then you lose credibility, right?
Yeah.
So this is what's at the center of the question that I asked, right? I agree with everything you just said, Akin. I agree with everything you just said. The reality hits a bit different, though. And what's the reality? We talked about Uncle Mephi. We, here in this context, are in a situation where the law is what the regulator says the law is. And he can change it tomorrow morning to suit his whims. When we had a conversation with Efosa,
I was trying to say, actually.
When we had a conversation with
the
Efosa,
law in Nigeria is like it shifts like this, so it depends on how they want the law to be.
Like pendulum.
So when we had this conversation with Efosa, right, when we discussed his book on the show, one of the things I said to Efosa was, we are in a context where policy has been weaponized. In that context, I was speaking specifically to Nigeria, but I can actually broaden that brush, right, to the subcontinent, where policy has been weaponized. So we can take the high road and speak to the moral ideals. In the real world, though, regulators and the authorities take a totally different view. So I would pay money to be a fly on the wall where you, Kamel, and probably Uchi are making a pitch to Uncle Mephi about a CBD in Nigeria. I would love to see that conversation. Do you understand? For this reason, right? Just about how.
Actually, I think Lucky can make that happen now. It's Lucky's people. Lucky.
It's Lucky's people, Abi.
Yeah.
I would love to just sit down there and listen to that conversation.
Example of a central bank who asked for a CBDC.
Repeat that again.
Say again.
What if I gave you a central bank who asked for a CBDC? They asked for it.
Please tell us, please.
Bahamas. So Bahamas.
Auntie, calm down now. We are talking Bahamas.
Right? No. Don't oversee that. Hold on. We have to be able to find examples of what works.
Give me one in Africa.
If we're going to think about, Reserve Bank of South Africa actually tested and presented, already had RFP out asking.
Where?
South Africa. South Africa.
And then the Project Coke as well.
South Africa has.
Listen, I know how to write proposal. Who can I partner with? Every time I hear RFP, what do you say?
Okay, request for proposal. It's early stage, but it's for that type of institution, it is the closest sign of that they know that something is changing.
Yeah,
okay?
They recognize the sea change that's happened. Yes.
There's a sea change happening, and it's not going to be, it might not, hit you in the face when it happens. It might happen with a sandbox. It might happen with, step by step of the central bank saying, I got an email yesterday from the Fed saying, do you think we should do a sandbox? Do you think it's a good idea? The Federal Reserve, right, is thinking about innovation and how do they partner with collaboration. There's something happening right now. But I think I want to make the point, right? It is because of Bitcoin. It is because of what Bitcoin and how the technology works, the fact that you cannot control it, even if you want control, by design, it's uncontrollable.
Yeah. So
right. So they have to reckon with that.
So to Justin's point, to the question you asked, right? Now the core thing is every citizen of the world, wherever in most places you live, you now have a way to opt out of a central bank controlled financial system. That's important because today in Nigeria, wherever I am, I can buy dollars outside of the realm of the central bank on a cryptocurrency exchange, right? I can buy one of a number of stable currencies and I can literally say, look, I'm opting out of Naira because I think Uncle Mephi is inflating us till the Naira is worth nothing. So you know what? I'll take my savings. I'll put the majority in dollars, a dollar peg stable coin. I don't even have to get into Bitcoin. That alone gives me some level of cover. And because of that optionality, in my view, what you're going to see happening is central banks will either have to innovate or they will become inconsequential. because if I can opt out of the Naira for the vast majority of my needs and transactions, I could care less what Uncle Murphy is doing. And Uncle Murphy's policies now become not only inconsequential to me, but en masse ineffective. Because if the guy on the ground is like,
let's get to the how to parts.
Huh?
I can sound like
Let's
it's ready
get to
to
the how
fight.
to part.
I'm ready.
Let's get to the how to parts. For the listeners, for the viewers who want to, I have 1 million naira in the bank, I have 2 million naira in the bank. How do I move to crypto? Let's simplify this thing.
So it's very easy, right? Now, the good thing about Nigeria is there's some level of sensitization to digital platforms already exists, right? People use fintech, you use apps, right? We're used to doing mobile transactions. Today in Nigeria, right, you can download one of a number of apps, whether it's Binance, Bundle, Bitcoins. You can attach it to your bank account, give them your BVN. You could transfer Naira onto those platforms, and you can buy Bitcoin, dollar, whatever you want, right? The
So what happens if Uncle Murphy shuts those people down?
If Uncle Murphy shuts down those people, you can still do it.
It's gonna
Now, hold on. How?
Okay,
Hold on.
the blockchain.
If Uncle Murphy shuts them down, you go to the largest markets in Africa. Paxful is peer-to-peer. Local Bitcoin now has KYC, but Paxful is the largest exchange in Africa. And on Paxful, it's a peer-to-peer market.
Let me. Sorry, Akin. Let me clarify the reasoning behind my question.
Sure.
So, in breaking it down, you said so most of the apps that we use. Okay, so you link your bank account or you link your bank card, right? Now that's what brings you into the crosshairs of Uncle Murphy, right? The fact that your account, which is under his purview, is linked to that platform, right? Whether it be Binance or whatever. Now, it's very easy for Uncle Murphy to send a memo to the banks under his purview to say, you can no longer allow such and such an app to connect. And besides that, by the way, we saw something like this happen in the past 1 month, right? In fact, I tweeted something to that effect. We saw things like that happen, right? Behind the scenes. Okay, so now, where he can simply tell the banks to disconnect your service provider who is providing you the crypto platform from the banks. Remember, your Naira is already in the banks. What options do you potentially have?
So there are two things, right? So I'll answer your option and then I'll give you a second point. Now, the other options you have is you can put cash under your mattress, you can take cash, and you can buy Bitcoin. Like literally peer-to-peer. I can meet a guy somewhere, like one of the agents that Lucky talked about, and say, look, I have 1 million naira cash in my house. I have a Bitcoin wallet that is not on any of those platforms. It's a wallet I control, right? No one else can touch that wallet without my permission, right? If I don't give out my secret key. I can give that guy cash and he can send me Bitcoin from anywhere in the world. So if I meet the guy face-to-face,
straight to your wallet.
Straight to my wallet, right? And that's essentially what the entities during the NSARS movement, they had a version of that. It's called a BTC Pay server. They could receive funds. They controlled everything. No one could touch it. So that's one side. Now, the second side is, it's not just the regular guys on the street that are using Bitcoin, right? Uncle Murphy's friends use Bitcoin.
Like, we know what they use it for.
No, Uncle.
Okay, that's a good point.
Let me land.
I hope the viewers or the listeners know who this Uncle Murphy is.
Wait,
Uncle Murphy is a fictional character, please.
He's the central bank governor of Nigeria.
Lucky, off your mic.
Hold on. Now, but the second point, the point I'm trying to make is there are two problems with Uncle Murphy trying to shut down every avenue. In fact, there are three. First problem is a lot of influential Nigerians use that same channel. Problem one. Problem two, if you shut everyone out.
I can real quick. Sorry to cut you in. That usage, does it have some sprinkling of corruption on top of it?
You like Amebo?
No, wait,
please continue what you were saying.
Let me clarify something.
We're not discussing corruption. We're discussing cryptocurrency. Off your mic.
Make your own conclusion.
I think it has.
Okay.
Without fairness, it has. But though it depends on what the person wants to use it for. Again,
It's a use case.
people
That's
using
why I'm
peer-
asking.
yeah,
I'm not trying
yes.
to be mischievous. It's
But
just a
wait,
use
hold
case.
on, Lucky, let me finish my 3 points.
Yeah.
So the first point is very politically connected Nigerians use crypto. So they'll be knocking on Uncle Murphy's door saying, "You're messing my own business." One. Number two, if you shut down everybody from who has bank accounts from using the apps they want, they will withdraw their money and they will go and use peer-to-peer. You've created a second problem for your banking sector. Bank MDs will start calling you and saying, "Uncle, what do you need to do?" Now, and in English, that means, "What are you doing, Uncle?" Now, so that's the second problem.
That's a really good point, though.
Right? So Uncle Murphy is now creating all these problems for himself. And the third problem with taking those draconian steps, and the most important, is that because the majority of Nigerian economy is informal, Bitcoin has been a lifeline to the Nigerian economy, because a lot of businesses that would not have existed today because they couldn't get dollars exist. People are eating that would have been starving. If Uncle Murphy now says, "Oh, no more Bitcoin, let me start shutting down these avenues," what's going to happen? Nigerian economy will contract even more because you'll destroy businesses, right? And then you have, frankly, in my view, you sow the seeds of an uprising. Simple.
Yeah.
And those are
On
problems
that last point, you're assuming they care. Niggas shut the borders for like 8 months now.
I'm just saying. So how many fights do you want to have? Look, you can start the common man, but if you're fighting with the common man, bank MD, influential, politically connected people, I mean, are you going to fight everybody at the same time?
But they are fighting both, though. The border affects both. The border affects people that bring stuff in.
Nah, that's
Also,
You're fighting
the border
everybody right now,
makes
man.
it expensive. Yeah,
It
you
doesn't.
are.
Wait, hold on. No, Bola, wait. Things do not affect people even in Nigeria. You know that, right? Even if they close the border, certain people will get their stuff across the border, right?
I mean, you have a point.
People, right? If you close the border and you're not going to mess with Dangote's businesses, right? Dangote will find a way to survive. Will call his friends.
Uncle D got an exemption, bro.
For the record, Uncle D got an exemption.
He even got
You got an exemption.
Everybody has a nickname in Nigeria.
Signed by Uncle Murphy and the president saying, "Oh, you're different." So what are we talking about?
Yeah, but I mean, everything that you guys are talking about here are problems. So imagine all the gymnastic that Uncle Murphy has to do to try to keep control, right? It's becoming too much, right? Instead,
but it doesn't seem like to us it seems like they don't like it doesn't bother him or he doesn't care.
Yeah, they do.
That's what it seems like to us.
I was going to say that they do. So behind closed doors. So I have a different conversation with them, right? I'm not one of those kids. So MTech, when we walk in, it's really talking about look at the risks, right? That by the time that you ban something that is legal and safe for people to use, you end up pushing them in a very volatile market, right? So because Bitcoin could have gone to zero. By the time the transfer happened, it could have gone to zero, right? And we have to, I know we're riding the 17,000 wave right now, but zero is still a real possibility. You know what I'm saying?
It is.
No, it's not. Zero is an impossibility.
Though volatility.
Zero is also a far possibility.
It's not, and I'll tell you why it is. Right? I mean, there are many reasons why zero is not possible at this point, in my view. Right?
Again, you have to be honest that you can't.
No,
you
I
can't
think zero is still a possibility.
Right? You can't guarantee.
Even though
is the violence I was talking about, though.
Wait, hold on now.
Let me
make my point.
Everybody's scared
volatility have greatly reduced, but I still think zero.
Now, let me make my point. Right? And so, very back to the beginning of what we're talking about. Bitcoin has a real use case, right? Multiple use cases that people are using it today, that people are transacting and getting utility out of. Now, the reason why I'll say like it is past this point of getting to zero.
I agree with Akin.
But no, it's very simple. And let me put it in certain terms, right? The most important financial institutions in the world have now said we want in many ways. For example, US banks can now domicile cryptocurrencies because they can custody it. Why? That's business. They're seeing that business slip from them, and they've told all their regulatory friends. The CFTC passed that rule a few weeks ago. Right? For the CFTC to be bold not to do that, bank MDs were calling them in the US saying, look, we need to get into this business. Right? We know what happens in the US. Like the tail doesn't wag the dog. Bankers are powerful. If the bankers want to get into a business, they will influence the regulatory system to get there. That's number one. Number two, if you look at some of the largest buyers of Bitcoin over the last 6 months in this country, in the United States, institutional hedge funds, the Rothschild family, one of the oldest banking families in the world, bought Bitcoin through the Grayscale Bitcoin Trust. A lot of family offices, which is basically code name for the 1% are getting into Bitcoin. Now, when all those influential people are now saying, look, I see my money in the bank losing value every day because the central bank keeps printing. I can't put my money into overinflated stocks, overinflated real estate. I'm not getting a return on government securities. And they look at Bitcoin and they say, look, this thing keeps going up. They too want to put some of their assets into something that's not controlled by the system that they're in because that system is losing credibility, right? And ultimately, particularly in countries where you have certain freedoms, unless there is a constitutional reason to ban something, you can't just say, oh, wake up some morning and say, I'm banning it. In America, there's a court system that people can get a fair arbitration from. So that's the rock and a hard place that a lot of regulators also sit within because they have a particular remit. If something is not affecting, look, in America, if there's no fiduciary, if there's no one between a transaction I'm doing with someone else, for most regulators, you do not have necessarily any control over that. You can't tell me that I can't transact privately and come into my private transactions if there's no one in the middle that is custodying my funds, right? It's very difficult to now say, there's something called like regulatory overreach. If a regulator is overreaching its mandate, it's a problem. The Congress will intervene and say, look, you weren't allowed to do that, right? People can sue and say, no. In America, you can sue the president, you can sue the government. This is not Nigeria. So the problem I'm now seeing, the problem I'm seeing is that the people that control the world are now saying, right, the countries that basically run financial policy for the world are saying, hey, this thing is looking okay. The banks are saying we want in. There 1% are saying we want in. To me, it's extremely difficult now to unwind that, right? And that's where. Yeah.
Okay, Aki. While I think you made some valid point in terms of standing on the position that we've gone past the point where Bitcoin can never fall to zero, but let's not forget that this is strictly based on maths and cryptography or codes and all that. I believe that if there is any major breach in terms of the code that is governing Bitcoin, we could return back to zero. I wouldn't overrule that. Case in point, we had a scenario where we discovered some errors between Ethereum in the Ethereum code, though it was quickly fixed and all of that. I wouldn't overrule the fact that we might not get to a point where cryptography becomes where this quantum computer happens to break most of these cryptographic keys. We're already beginning to see that. As a matter of fact, today, quantum computing that is available with the likes of Tesla and, if I'm not mistaken, there was this breakthrough we had. Was it with IBM or with one other company like that, that they said they've been able to have breakthrough in quantum computing, which happens to also be able to calculate the mathematical computational stuff behind Bitcoin blockchain, and they can be able to break the cryptographic key at a much more quicker time. Look, as of today, the basic computer cannot be able to do that mathematics on time if they even want to try to break the key. But again, let's not forget that with the possibilities and the technologies that is continuing to emerge in today's world, that this is still possible. If a quantum computing can still be able to do that, even though it will be expensive for anybody to put resources into it. I think I did the math at one point in time. Sometimes when I was doing my presentation for Central Bank of Nigeria, when they asked me, what is the possibilities of being able to attack the Bitcoin blockchain. Sometimes in 2016, when I did the maths, we're looking at somewhere around close to $16 billion or $17 billion that it will cost if we want to say, let's say, mess up the entire blockchain. But nobody will be willing to put that amount of money just to get a result or for 10 minutes and then it goes back to normal.
Can I come in real quick? Can I come in real quick? Okay, so I think Uche wanted to say something. Whoever wants to respond to this point. But I want us to get a little bit. Let's move into technology a little bit, and I want Uche to come in. What does this mean for technology now and in the future? Like, what's the landscape? I kind of want to get some of that from Uche and everybody else. But please respond, and then I kind of want you to bring in on that. And then there's this question on the screen. If you guys can see it, if you have thoughts about it, you can chime in as well.
Yeah, for sure. So I would start by responding to Locke. And yeah, it's true that it's true that it can go to zero, but I mean statistically, it's highly likely that will happen, right? Just because of the effort it's going to take to get to that point. And going back to adoption, also, from what we've said so far, it looks like for us to reach mass adoption, we have to work with like the regulators and things like that. So, and to get to that point, we still have to go through KYC. And that's why the point I made about crypto and blockchain for like digital identity and in a private setting, that's the first step for us to get to this mass adoption. Because I mean, if you want to get lots of people to start using these digital currencies, they still need to do KYC, right? And to do that KYC efficiently, the way we're doing it now with the fragmented databases across like multiple separate entities isn't going to lend itself well for a better adoption, right? And then with regards to the technical aspect of things, I mean, I don't know, like Ebola, what was your question about how to implement blockchain or what? What was the question about it from the technical side of things?
So we mentioned a couple of use cases. We mentioned a couple of potential drawbacks, roadblocks, a lot of things. I just wanted to know. I know blockchain is used heavily here, especially, and then with other use cases with identity. But just from outlook, like okay, because you guys have mentioned even. I know you guys mentioned terminologies that seem like everybody knows, but newsflash, not everybody knows them. Like it says something about something dollar that everybody. I'm like, I don't know that or no.
Okay, USD.
Yes, I'm like, today was the first time I've seen it. I actually saw it on Bitcoin CEO's thing. I think they have that function that available on their platform now. I shared it. I was like, what's this, huh? Because they had one option was Bitcoin, the other option was something that I was like, what's that? Anyways, not all of us know what's happening. But from that standpoint, from technology, what are you saying? Like if you wanted to work on something now, like it's going to be trending in the future, and it's a technology backed solution or idea or intervention, like what are some of the things you're seeing? And this is not for just you. Everybody else can chime in on that as well.
Yeah, I can go first. So what I'm saying is a world where we're starting by first providing a form of wallet to everyone. So an efficient KYC system that is backed by cryptography. I believe that's the first step. And then once we get all of these regulators and central banks onto a core platform that allows them to issue those identities to people, then we're going to move to a stage where like Bitcoin and the other cryptocurrencies would be more widely adopted. Because I mean, you could do the peer-to-peer side of things, but we've seen that it's hardly scalable, right? If you want to get like maybe 1 million or 1 billion, $1,000 or $1,000 or something like that, doing that peer-to-peer by exchanging Naira and getting crypto in Nigeria, it's still kind of tough to do, right? So we still need that form of KYC. And then going back to like how anyone can get into this technology, I like they already mentioned it already. So using the apps is the best way to go. And once you've been able to like exchange your Nigerian naira to any crypto, then you can move it to maybe a different wallet in that have more currencies. So there are lots of them. I'm not going to mention the names, but there are lots of them that you can move them to that have hundreds or even 500 more currencies that they support. So I think that's the like the process of getting into like blockchain. First, starting by exchanging your naira to a crypto in Nigeria, and then the next step will be transferring Bitcoin to a separate currency that maybe you could spend in a different country.
So Tether. So there are what we're talking about earlier in terms of stable coins, right? So the term called stable coins, which is basically digital currencies that are basically mimic the value of another currency. So a lot of widely used stable coins are dollar based, right? So you have Tether, USD Tether, which is the largest. You have BUSD, which is Binance USD. You have USDC, which was created by Coinbase. So you have, sure, was it Circle? But Coinbase is, didn't Coinbase acquire them? USD.
I was thinking it was created by Circle, USDC, right?
No, sorry, I meant USDS.
Okay, okay.
Your USDC, US. Anyway, one of them. But anyway, you have a number of different dollar stable coins, which are supposed to basically exchange one for a dollar, but they might deviate here or there based on demand and supply and whatever algorithms govern them. But essentially what is happening in Nigeria and what's been happening at a very fast clip is people are exchanging their naira on some of these exchanges for stable coins. And you can hold your currency now in a dollar stable coin, and you can withdraw it when you need to spend it. So that provides some level of security against naira devaluation, which is picking up again. So anytime there's a fear of devaluation of naira, you all of a sudden see a spike in demand for Bitcoin, a spike in demand for these stable coins, because people see what's coming, right? It might go to 480 naira to $1 today. Next week it might be 500. You don't really know where it's going. So this fear of losing value in your currency now gets people asking questions and getting them to action, right? And so I think the first use case is finding, like, you're kind of looking for a solution to a problem you have. And if there's an accessible way to solve that, then you will. So whether it's storing value so you don't lose it, or whether it's settling global transactions, and it's like my business is basically going to fail if I can't transact, you'll look around looking for a solution. And regardless of how challenging it might be, that kind of spurs people to look for solutions. And when they find some of those solutions, they might realize that it's actually better than what they were using before, right? And because you have to understand, in Nigeria, for example, we also pride our privacy. I think a lot of people don't realize that. Like, a lot of people don't want you to know what where their money is, how much money they have. And some of it is because they don't want the government to be coming after them, levying all sorts of unreasonable taxes. Like before you know it, all 12 different agencies in Nigeria are trying to hunt you down for their own cut. It's almost like it's like 12 families in a mafia, and everyone now wants to collect their cut. And then you look around and say, but what are you doing for me? So all the taxes that you collect from me, I don't see it. When I wake up in the morning, there's still traffic on the road. When I wake up in the morning, I don't see food prices dropping. Like, things are getting worse, but yeah, I'm getting taxed more and more. In that kind of a system, like, people are going to have a problem wanting to give money to an entity that's not performing. I'll give you a contrast to that. Like, where I live, right, in the US, counties, typically your local government taxes or your state taxes pay for most of the things you see: education, the minor roads, right? And you can see it, right? So when the county says, "Oh, can we borrow money to go invest in schools and parks?" and I mark it on my ballot. Next year, I see a new school building being constructed. Next year, it's like, oh, that fallow piece of land now has a playground my kids can play. I can see it. So I have no problem paying taxes because I can see the value it's creating. In a system where I'm paying taxes and levies and my life isn't getting better, it's a problem. So I want to hide.
Only problem is Lucky's guy don't pay taxes. So I don't know how. I mean,
Lucky's guys, right?
Lucky's guy, he paid $750 in taxes. So I mean, I don't understand how we'll be able to build parks and roads.
Thank you.
I mean,
so now, but it's a credibility issue ultimately.
You are robbing children of their future.
Right. I mean, I remember I don't know if you guys remember this, but there was it was a while back, but I think Lagos State, under the other previous administration, was trying to pass some sort of a weird water tax, or if you have a borehole in your house, you must pay some weird tax.
I heard about the borehole. That was a bona fide joke. It doesn't understand why people have boreholes in their house. You don't understand the reason. The reason is because you're not providing water.
So now that I'm providing my own water, you want to now come and tax me after I paid? The whole middle class, there was an uproar. The government had to reverse that because it's
it was one of those situations where they sat down drinking champagne and they're like, let's just try this one. It might just work.
I have a theory about this thing. Part of it is that they just see trends and they'll count houses. They'll be like, everything has borehole. Who gave them permission? It's just because they have borehole. And they feel like you can tax it. I don't know, maybe it's the champagne thing they are talking about, because when you hear the proposed policy, it reeks of someone was drunk and they decided to see maybe this was a good idea.
When you consider that they still get away with taking radio and TV licenses from people, which is
I know Justin fights that all the time.
I don't pay it now. Their stickers are all over my office. I don't pay. Anytime they come, I chase them away. Because they do, the funny thing is they do it through the LCDAs, and the LCDAs are not a constitutionally recognized arm of government, right? So I just calculate.
Don't say that loud in
let's hear what
in Lagos.
That one we go to court. I've never paid it. They come. I say which TV? I don't have TV in my office. I don't have radio in my office. They say they want to. I said, do you have a search warrant? Why do you want to enter my office? That's the matter at the end. Why do you want to enter my office? I say I don't have TV. I don't have radio. One stupid one now said, but this is DSTV. I said DSTV. So you want to collect that from DSTV? Will you get?
Man,
that's crazy.
The crazy place.
So I know I asked earlier, just for the sake of on the record, what in Nigeria, what is the policy direction for cryptocurrency?
What's the policy direction for what?
Crypto in Nigeria. What's CBN saying now?
Yeah, I said today because there was this engagement we got involved in. Oh, sorry, I think it just took the line. There was this. Okay, it's back. So there was this engagement we got involved in 2 weeks back. I think yes, exactly 2 weeks from today. But though it was powered or championed by NITDA, that is the Nigerian Information Technology Development Agency. As of today, there is no definite law as it stands now.
Just why are you laughing?
There is no definite law. I use the word no definite law because
I asked him this question earlier and he was trying to tell me, I said, okay, what is the law right now?
Yeah, there's no definite law. But from the perspective of regulators, I think they'd be more friendly. Friendly in the sense that currently, as of today, there is already this, we realize the word coalition of the likes of SEC, the likes of NITDA, the likes of Central Bank, moving for much more positive approach to towards the industry. And
I can tell you what the strategy is. Leave out this grammar speaking.
But I don't see it in that
vibes and inshallah, that's the strategy. That's it.
No, but I don't see it that way.
But is it a good
already
thing?
There is a national draft document. Already there's a national draft as of today. there is a national draft document that is available in that regard. Even though we're going into the next phase of things,
how much are we going to be paying if you want to start a Bitcoin? If you want to do anything in crypto, we want to start a company. How much is that regular? How much is that fee?
Yeah, we were expecting that information from SEC as the last information they posted on their website, but they said we should still give them time for them to.
How many zeros? Because they already know the P is like, okay, it looks like they're making money. So okay, you want to do anything in crypto, 100,000.
As of today, they've not pegged or put any amount in that regard. Like again, I still maintain that the regulators have been more friendly when I compare it to the other things I see in other climates. Believe me, in Nigeria, it's very easy for you to start up any crypto-related business or money exchange-related business in crypto angle than you would have been able to do that in places like America.
Luckily, we need to talk. We need to talk behind the scenes. I'll hit you up. I think I followed you. So just follow.
Lucky,
So I think
when we finish, though,
Lucky has
when we get offline, online, we can talk offline. We can still stay on when we end the broadcast pretty soon.
Okay.
No, I think Lucky has a point. To be fair, I do agree with Lucky from the standpoint of the Nigerian regulators have been more hands off than many regulators, right? So they've been kind of like a lot of wait and see. They haven't really passed any onerous.
That's not by design. That's not because they are being nice. So
no, but my point is. So I think there's two reasons for that. Yes, I think you can speculate.
They haven't figured out what it is you guys want to do in this space yet. So they're giving you room to get your ducks in a row
and to start making money.
But interestingly, when you engage most of these regulators, I'm not speaking from a perspective of because I've either done some work with them before in the past, or when you engage some of these regulators, you find out that seriously they are sound as most of the guys in the private sector. Though not all of them, but there are a couple of them within these agencies, from the likes of Central Bank, from the likes of SCC, from the likes of NISDA. They are sound as, it's not because they don't know what's happening. They do know what is happening. Case in point, the DG of NISDA, I was so surprised during the last meeting when he was even discussing things around Ripple and Chris Larsen, which is the creator of Ripple, in a much more in-depth manner, and you begin to wonder, this is not the regular kind of Nigerian regulators we know. They are sound.
But I think it aligns
the problem.
with what the world Justin is saying, that it's not that they don't understand. They're trying to see what you want to do.
Some of them do understand, believe me.
Hey, no, we are not disagreeing with that. They want to see what you're trying to do. They want to see.
No, not some of them. Not some of them. Some of these guys are the best trained people, believe me or not, right? Especially the older ones. Some of them are the best trained people. Some of them are the most exposed people. The problem is not that people in the public sector or public space do not know. The issue is that the things you want them to do does not serve their agenda. So the problem in Nigeria is not that people are stupid. It's not that it's rocket science and we don't know how to figure it out or we don't know how to fix it. That's not it. Anybody who thinks that's the problem doesn't understand the issues. So if you go in there thinking that you're going to talk to a bunch of dummies, you got it wrong. They are smart people. The point is,
correct,
are they going to get it done? No. I mean, we've been trying to crack national ID for over a decade. You think it's because you've had the most brilliant technocrats in that place, right? I know some of them. That's not the issue. It's not knowing what to do. These things are not rocket science. It is, what does Oga at the top want at the end of the day? That's it.
But I think I'd agree with both points, but I also say, like, I think the biggest challenge for regulators is, even if they wanted to do certain things, there's a lot they cannot do. There's a lot they cannot stop. So they either create an environment that is equitable, that makes sense, right, where you do KYC, you make sure criminals aren't doing funny things, where you leave businesses to thrive, or you squeeze it so much that people leave the formal financial system and say, okay, I'm done. Because they now have options that you have zero control over. And that's the risk now where regulators sit, because it's one thing to pass a rule. It's another thing to be able to enforce it. If you cannot enforce it, it's a waste of everyone's time. Because if you cannot stop me from transacting privately using Bitcoin, then you can pass whatever law you want. Me in the village or in the market, I don't necessarily have to comply, and that's a challenge.
I can hear where the drag is. We haven't quite hit that spot yet, that sweet spot where I can go shop for groceries, right, at the store down the road and pay with crypto, right? We haven't gotten there yet. Now, until you get that level of penetration.
You mean in Nigeria?
Yes, I'm speaking about Nigeria.
Actually,
and again,
there are cases where we've, not just in Nigeria, there are cases, though it's not on a wider reach, but
that's exactly my point. If you don't achieve that critical mass, if the majority of people who need to do daily life dependent transactions, right, still depend on fiat money in the regulated system, then, I mean, by the natural course of events, the regulator still holds sway, right? There are pockets and there are communities where, yes, what Akin and yourself are saying holds true, where people can, to a large extent, circumvent the system. But for the greater majority of people, that's not the case.
Yeah, so
that's just the point I'm making. That's not the case.
Yeah, but Uchi made a point. Uchi made, now I'll kind of now jump into Uchi's camp fully. He made a very good point earlier on. Where, no, he said, and I agree with him, that the vast majority of people are going to come through a regulated system. Like, so when you get billions of people adopting crypto, now I think that, so the most recent good news, PayPal is now doing crypto, right?
Yeah.
And PayPal is, if PayPal was a bank in America, it'll be the 10th largest bank in the country. You know, wow. PayPal has over 26 million merchants that it would allow to now accept crypto, right? They have 100 million users that would now, for the first time, adopt crypto. In the KYC system, it's all above board. Now, the way I understand PayPal's system is you'll be able to store crypto, and when you go to a merchant, the merchant can receive dollars, and the currencies swap in the background. Now, my issue is when PayPal starts adopting that under a regulatory framework where they can do it, and it's a global company, and then, you know, all the other guys adopt it. You know, Stripe now says, look, we're going to do something similar down the road. At some point in Nigeria, are you going to say, look, we're going to stay in the Stone Age and not adopt these technologies that add value? You can say that, but then you're locked out of an evolving financial system that if you don't go along with it, you become less and less relevant. Because you have to understand, Nigeria still has to be part of a global world, global trade, right? If the Fed in the US is saying it's okay, and Nigeria's Central Bank is saying no, at some point it's like you either go along with the world or you don't. And so I think there's a lag, right? There'll be a lag time potentially. But
yeah, like, we'll be late adopters.
Right. But one of the reasons why I'm confident for a couple of reasons. One, the Nigerian tech ecosystem is extremely innovative, right? And there are companies already coming through that are going to be able to provide those services, right? There was an article, I think, a couple of days ago. A company called Zenbit is trying to launch a DeFi platform. It's going to have payments. It's going to have all these things. Right, we'll see if the regulator lets them do what they want, but there are companies already being incubated in Nigeria that are saying, look, we're going to build these tools, and we're going to build distribution, we're going to build the networks. So,
all right, my last question, and if you guys can just answer real quick, because we're about to wrap up. We're hitting the 2-hour mark, and we're having hard stop. And everyone, or one person can answer this, but real quick, what's the talent landscape like on the continent, Nigeria, if you will, in terms of supporting crypto as an ecosystem, as a business? What's the talent pipeline looking like?
Okay, I would answer it in two ways. One, are the availability of talent, adequate number of persons who are technically grounded when it comes to being able to build solutions around it? The answer is no. We don't have enough of it. But are there people who are willing or able to learn or wants to learn in this area? The answer is yes. But are there places where they can even learn about it? The answer again is still no. Case in point, myself. All right. Currently, I had to register with some Indian-based training institute right now at the moment, trying to upgrade my knowledge as regards to being able to build stuff around AI and some other advanced blockchain architecture. Even though I'm willing and able to, I want to learn, but there's little or no place at all within the Nigerian space where I can even learn about these things. The hubs, of course, are not adequate enough, and for the ones that
Is it demand there? Is it demand?
the demand, of course, absolutely. Okay. There's the high demand. As of today, for most of the blockchain or AI or ML machine learning developers we don't even have much AI and ML developers at today. I think we're having some form of increased number of blockchain-based developers. We have developers, but a lot of them are not well grounded as pertains to the blockchain aspect of it. There's a substantial amount of developers in the country, but very few of them tends to have a clear understanding of what this blockchain is about. They have an understanding of the normal traditional finance-based kind of products and services, but when you try to explain things around blockchain, not a lot of them don't even know about it. And for the few who do know about it, there's this demand where I would like what they're now beginning to do shakara. Shakara in the sense that it's almost like practically impossible.
It's demand as it's not shakara.
That one, if you don't have real money, if someone is a local blockchain developer in Nigeria, if you don't have money, don't waste your time. Like,
yeah.
Plus, also not just the money, the productivity too will suffer because they will take too much jobs at the same time.
At the same time.
So, but okay, my position on that is it's not a talent issue. I think Nigeria has the talent. I think it's an awareness issue.
Or alignment.
It's an awareness and education issue. So I'll give you an example, right? I used to work for a network called Decred. Most of our stack is built on Golang. Like Golang developers all over Africa, up and down.
Correct.
Right? Like the transition from someone who understands Golang to being able to build on a Golang blockchain is not a leap. It's not rocket science. If you know how to code, some of the architecture might be different. You might need a PM that guides you through certain things. But if you're an intelligent person, you can absorb those things very easily. The issue is there awareness, for example, that as a developer today, I can work out of anywhere in Nigeria for a decentralized network, get paid in Bitcoin, Tether, whatever currency, and I have the wherewithal to understand how to set up a wallet and how to kind of transact. That's not rocket science either. It's just a matter of knowing.
So why do you think that awareness is not there? Or why do you think, like, I mean, I'm a businessman. I'm like, why is nobody?
So I think
there's some form of reasonable amount of awareness as of today. If Aki had said this 3 years ago, I would say yes. But for the year 2020, I would not agree with him.
Uchi wants to come around.
Yeah, because I mean, from running Africa Hacks and also like Niger Hacks, we've seen a lot of good blockchain solution come from our hackathons. Even right in 2018, there was one solution that built a blockchain for the entertainment industry at the hackathon, right? And looking at the over 20,000 people in the community, there are lots of people that are looking to get into this space. And even in also 2019, there was someone that built an AI MVP for plant disease detection and published a paper for it. That paper was like read by thousands of like people in the AI community. So that's from Nigeria alone, right? So I think the talent is there. I think what there's opportunity to kind of formalize the process of connecting those talents to opportunities and also like inspiring them to start exploring use cases, right? Because from what I've seen in the like Africa Hacks community, there are lots of good developers, but sometimes they don't have the business like.
I would like to partner if anyone is interested in exploring this area, and it could be all of us. But I'm very interested in exploring it a little bit more.
Yeah. I mean, I would also want to I want to give a story. I think that's how it ended. A very short story, right? At Decred, which is it's a blockchain similar to Bitcoin, but There are lots of things around it like governance, and there's some nuances to it. But a lot of the core developers, right, that build our mobile platforms, mobile wallets, a lot of core infrastructure are Nigerian developers. Now, the structure in which they work under is a third-party firm with a very, very experienced PM has hired these guys from Nigeria, from Vietnam, and created a structure where their talents can be maximized, where they can learn, they can kind of upgrade their skills. And he provides a lot of these, almost sort of like an interface, like having like a very good manager that's supervising your work and making sure you're learning as long you go, as you go. And all these guys are being paid in crypto today, right? They have crypto, they probably have 10,000 naira in their bank accounts, and they get paid in crypto, and they are basically sovereign individuals. They could care less what the naira rate is in Nigeria today. And they've been working for us for over the last year and a half, 2 years. So like for me, and some of these guys are young, out of college, Babcock or wherever, 1 year, 2 years, and they're sharp. And so for me, it's like, it's not an issue of talent. It's an issue of access. And so what we need to be doing, like Uchi said, is identifying these people and creating more of an organized pipeline, where it's almost like a factory, where you're in a structured way funding education, funding awareness, funding the ability to understand, because we have to understand too, from a cost-benefit standpoint, any Nigerian dev, like all things being equal, is a lot less expensive than paying a dev in San Francisco or London or New York. There's a reason why Zuckerberg invested in Andela, not because he was doing charity, because it's like, look at all this talent that literally you can develop, and it's a lot less expensive than the Stanford guy that's asking you for 150K coming out of school. Like the Nigerians are just as intelligent, if not more so, that can do the work for less. So I think it's really an issue of building a much bigger pipe where, and it requires funding, it requires some level of, smart guys like Uchi giving some of his time and saying, look, let's build a real and fund development of this talent, because not only is the talent needed locally, right? So we have a lack of enough talent locally just to service us locally, but this talent can work anywhere around the world and get paid for it.
So again, anybody wants to explore it, please. I'm very interested. We work with skills development. I know how to write grants. I know where to find money for all this stuff. If anybody's interested, please. Me, when I start hearing to sing, because I'm looking at all the things you guys are saying, especially that use case about traders using crypto religiously to get their money abroad, to send money to China to buy stuff. That's when I agree
thinking about all my Alaba brothers.
It seems like that's what they're doing.
How much has this penetrated?
They're probably a lot more aware than you'll be surprised.
All right. Not even just in Alaba. When you mention Alaba, it's
early adopters of tech. I know that.
When you mention Alaba, is looking to, because Alaba is like in Lagos and all. You come back to Ariari and all that. You're already deep in Ariari.
and that's where I agree with Aki.
People are now using it in Onitsha. I'm serious.
That's where I agree with Aki. When Aki said the chance of it being zero is zero, and also that because now I can see value. Before I was having a hard time with tying value to crypto, but everybody knows that moving money is good, but moving it around is a headache. And if you are, you are in Aba, you are in whatever market, and you can easily reach your guy in China. Like people in trade, people in business, that's that part. People in trade know how critical that part is, and if you can easily do that using Bitcoin,
without that they don't have a business. Without that ability to move funds around like chess pieces on the board, They have no business.
True.
Yeah.
Anything that solves that problem. Do you have dollar here? Can you give me dollar? No.
Okay, quite interesting.
This is amazing.
But I wanted to actually, Justin, I didn't know you asked a question earlier. It was something around security breach. I don't know if we still have time, or maybe we'll leave it for another day. I actually just observed. I didn't realize.
Go for it, real quick. 2 minutes.
So if you want, I was asking if anybody wanted to take it up.
Okay. you said looking at the security breach in the space, if there have been quite a number of them this year alone.
Sorry, guys.
All right, true, actually, but for most of the security breach that have taken place, again, the industry have matured to the point whereby it's almost close to zero for any security breach or hack to take place, where money are now being moved without either the founders catching or finding a way to get around the particular person who must have taken this money, due to the fact that the likes of Chain Analysis, the likes of BIG's Blockchain Intelligence Group, they've been able to develop software solutions that are currently helping out to track or monitor these things. I think for any of those breaches that are currently taking place, it's almost like for the fun of it, but not really because they are able to really successfully move the money. But though I think that's where one key challenge is coming in with the area of DeFi's or the area of DEX, that's the decentralized exchange, where for most of these monies that have been stolen off the centralized exchange, they just take them to decentralized exchanges like Uniswap and then swap them off and quickly move away with the money. We saw the case in point with, if I'm not mistaken, was it what they call it, KuCoin. Though KuCoin, as at last month, said they've been able to recover about 70% or was it 80% of the money that have been stolen from them because of the fact that crypto or blockchain is totally transparent. We can easily monitor and track the whole thing back and forth from where it's going to and where it's coming from. And these again have helped to reduce most of those incidents around hack. But a lot of the successful problems, I use the word successful because the original intent of the person is to achieve a particular goal, and the goal was actually achieved. But a lot of those successful problems that have taken place in terms of where there was security breach have been stemmed from wrong or exploiting codes that were either not properly audited, especially for most of these DeFi's that are popping up here and there. That's where we call them rug pull, right? Where somebody will just come pull the rug in the case of either founder or in the case of where somebody's seen a code that was wrongly built and they decide to exploit the whole thing. The recent one where somebody's able to take advantage of this compound lending and borrowing, taking money from here, putting it there. It was a little bit complicated. I think I gave a Twitter post around this stuff. Just for the sake of time, I might not want to dive deep into it. So for most of the recent hack that have taken place, I think there is already solutions that's tackling that problem, or being able to at least investigate, monitor, track, and even catch the person at the end of the day, because crypto or blockchain is totally transparent. Why for the ones that have really been successful in such a manner that they've not been able to catch them? It's because somebody exploited the code that was wrongly audited or that was not properly audited per se. That have been the thing. I don't think that too much of this security fears are really a concern. Of course, it will definitely be a concern forever and ever, but no longer like the case as like in the earliest time. It's no longer like that. Most of the exchanges are now going with insurance, so people are not really too scared from the perspective of what if there is a hack, what will happen to me, and all of that. People are not too scared again using crypto because of the fear of hack and all. No, I don't think I'm seeing more of that trend per se. For the fact that insurance is now like a common thing, and for those major exchanges where we've seen hack, we've been able to see success cases of catching the persons or the people behind it, unless the person decides to just hack them and never use the money per se. That's
all right. Thank you guys so much. Justin, you want to say something? If not, we need to close before you start hounding me.
You want to have said today. Okay, so take us offline so we can chat a bit back in.
All right. Well, everyone, thank you so much for joining. If in case you just have like 30 seconds of anything to add to close, maybe something you thought of and you wanted to say, or if you have anything to plug, 30 seconds. If you have anything to plug, please do it. But thank you guys so much for joining.
I can plug something. Yeah, so we're actually doing a global hackathon coming up December, and one of the categories is blockchain for web monetization. It's supported by Grant for the web. So if you want to learn more about blockchain, just compete. apply for it.
Okay.
Grant for the web. It's $100 million.
Wait, so you collect $100 million?
Yeah. No, like,
Please don't give Bola a heart attack.
yeah. So anyone that's interested can join as a mentor, a participant, a judge.
This silent asset. Who is with me? Who wants to do this thing that I can very well explain? Who is with me? We need talent pipeline. Who is with me? Let's do this thing. If you are with me, let's talk offline.
Yeah, for sure. Always.
So, Akin, do you have anything to plug? Lucky, do you have anything to plug?
Nothing to plug them. Just tell them go do more learning, go do more research, and try to participate with Blitz.
Oh, guy, you are the one they are waiting for to give them the learning and the research. You don't know business. Do you know how much weekend classes? Do you know how much you can be making? Anyway, we'll talk offline.
Yeah, nothing specific. I would say the same thing. People should take advantage of access they have, through social media channels, right? So Twitter, most people in crypto hang out on Twitter.
That's what I was going to say. There's a lot of info that happens on there.
It's called crypto Twitter for a reason. So begin to just research and find people.
What's the hashtag? What's a good hashtag to just put in and follow?
Just go and follow his.
Look at my lists. Follow people on my list.
Just go and follow Akin's list.
You've done that. Justin, you've done that.
You look at the people I have conversations with. Those are the people in DeFi that are funding things, building things.
Okay, now your
that's
list.
The best way. That's the hack I'll tell people. Like, look for the people that are talking to people, and you'll never build your own list around people you follow. It's like a town square. Everyone is talking in public.
Interesting.
Those are the kind of people I follow. Not all those I follow back maniacs.
KFB. Okay, are you raising? Okay, how can we? This is your new P.
What do you mean? Am I raising?
Are you raising money? Can we invest?
Well, let's take us offline. Then let's talk.
I was still live or something. I'm not sure.
Well, take us off live.
Okay, I'm going off right now. Thank you so much.
Guys. Cheers.
We'll see you. We don't have a topic for next week.
No, guys, hang on.
Please hang on, guys.